All right, let's dive into something that I think a lot of people get confused about.
Yeah.
Nail psoriasis versus nail fungus.
Right.
These are two things that can really impact the look of your nails.
Definitely.
And I think a lot of people just assume, oh, it's just a fungus. But
Mm.
sometimes it's something a little more complicated.
Yeah, you can't just go to the drugstore and pick up an antifungal and assume it's going to take care of it.
Right, exactly.
It really depends on what's causing it.
So let's start with maybe just a simple, like, what is the core difference between the two?
Sure. So the core difference really comes down to the root cause.
Okay.
Nail psoriasis is an autoimmune condition.
Okay.
It means that your body's immune system is mistakenly attacking healthy cells in your nails.
So it's attacking itself.
It is attacking itself, exactly.
Okay.
Whereas nail fungus is an infection, so it's caused by a type of fungi.
Okay, so one is internal, one is external.
Exactly.
Okay, so how would we know?
That's the tricky part.
Yeah.
Because there is some overlap in how they look. Okay.
But there are some kind of key things to look for.
Okay.
So with psoriasis, you'll often see tiny little pits or dents on the nail surface.
Like almost like somebody poked it with a pin.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And you might also see a yellowish discoloration kind of underneath the nail, and the nail itself can become thickened and crumbly.
Now, what about the fungus? What would we see there?
So with a fungal infection, you're also going to see changes in the nail's color, often starting at the edge and progressing inward.
Okay.
So it might become yellow, brown, or even greenish.
Ugh.
Yeah, and the texture changes too.
Okay.
So the nail can become thickened and distorted,
Okay.
sometimes even taking on a claw-like shape.
Oh, wow.
It can also be brittle and crumbly
Oh, yeah.
and have debris accumulate underneath.
That does not sound good.
No, it's not a good look.
Okay, so it sounds like there is some potential for overlap there, right?
There is.
Okay.
So it can be really tricky to tell just based on looks alone.
So what do we do?
You need to see a dermatologist.
Okay. They can actually take a sample of the nail and look at it under a microscope to tell for sure. Yeah. Or even culture it and see if there's any fungal growth.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now let's talk about something that I think a lot of people are probably really curious about.
Sure.
Contagious or not.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously, fungus, you can spread that, right?
Nail fungus, absolutely contagious.
Okay.
Think about it. It's an infection. And those microscopic fungi can spread from person to person or even from contaminated surfaces.
Like if you're walking around barefoot in a locker room or something.
Exactly. Or sharing nail clippers.
Ah, yeah, don't do that.
Not a good idea.
Okay, but psoriasis, that's different, right?
Psoriasis is totally different.
Okay.
Nail psoriasis is not contagious at all.
So you can't catch it from somebody.
Nope. It's an autoimmune condition.
Okay.
Remember, it's your body attacking itself.
Right.
It's not caused by anything external.
That makes sense.
So no need to worry about catching psoriasis from a handshake.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
All right, now let's talk about what brings these things on.
Right.
What triggers these conditions?
Well, for nail psoriasis, it's similar to what triggers skin psoriasis.
Okay.
It's a combination of things.
Yeah.
It can be genetic and it can be environmental.
What kind of environmental factors?
Stress is a big one.
Stress. Okay, how does that work?
Stress triggers all sorts of reactions in your body, including the release of inflammatory chemicals.
Oh.
And remember, psoriasis is an inflammatory condition.
Right.
So when those stress hormones surge, it can make the inflammation in your nails worse.
Interesting.
And another thing that can trigger a flare-up is injury to the nail.
Injury, really?
Yeah, even something small like a hangnail or an overly aggressive manicure.
I would never have thought of that.
It's called the Koebner phenomenon.
Okay.
Basically, any trauma to the skin or nails can trigger this immune response and lead to more psoriasis.
Wow, so I guess you got to be really careful with your nails if you have psoriasis.
Yeah, it's important to protect them from injury.
Now, what about the fungus? What brings that on?
Well, fungus thrives in warm, moist environments. Okay. Think sweaty shoes, damp socks.
Like if you go to the gym and then leave your sweaty socks in your bag for a couple of days.
Exactly.
That's not good.
Not good at all.
Okay, so what can we do about all this?
Let's talk about treatments.
Let's do it.
So for nail fungus, the main treatment is antifungal medication.
Okay.
There are lots of different kinds.
Okay.
There are topical creams and solutions and even special nail lacquers
Okay.
that are designed to penetrate the nail plate.
And, you know, a lot of people are curious about Kerassentials these days.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's always important to remember that natural doesn't necessarily mean risk-free.
Right.
So it's crucial to talk to your doctor before starting any new treatment.
Okay,
Even if it's over-the-counter or a natural remedy,
right.
just to make sure it's safe and appropriate for you.
Okay, so we've got the topical stuff, but what if that's not working?
For more serious cases, your doctor might recommend oral antifungal medications.
Okay.
They can be really effective, but they often require a longer treatment course.
And I bet there are side effects with that, right?
There can be.
Yeah.
So again, it's really important to talk to your doctor about the risks and benefits.
Okay, so what about the psoriasis?
So psoriasis is an immune system issue.
Right.
So treatments focus on managing inflammation and calming down that overactive immune response.
Okay.
We don't have a cure yet,
Okay.
but there are lots of things we can do to manage it.
Okay, so what kind of things?
Well, often it involves a combination of topical medications like corticosteroids to reduce the inflammation,
Okay.
and then lifestyle modifications to manage stress and support your immune system.
So it's kind of a holistic approach.
It is.
Okay.
It's about addressing the root cause, not just masking the symptoms.
Now, are there any, potential downsides to any of these treatment options?
Well, any treatment can have potential side effects.
Yeah.
Topical treatments can sometimes cause skin irritation or allergic reactions.
Okay.
And with oral antifungals, there's always a risk of more serious side effects.
Okay.
So you really need to weigh the potential benefits against the risks.
And again, talk to your doctor.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about causes, we've talked about treatments.
Yeah.
Let's talk about prevention.
All right.
What can we do to avoid these problems in the first place?
Well, for both conditions, good nail hygiene is key.
Okay.
Keep your nails trimmed, keep them clean, keep them dry.
Right.
Avoid biting your nails or picking at hangnails.
Okay.
And be mindful of communal spaces like locker rooms and showers.
Right.
Those are breeding grounds for fungus.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. When it comes to nail care tools, make sure you clean them regularly.
Okay.
Soap and water is good. Or even better, disinfect them with rubbing alcohol.
Okay.
And never, ever share nail clippers or files.
Don't share.
Don't
Certified.
Yeah. And when it comes to footwear, choose breathable shoes.
Okay.
Made from natural materials.
Okay.
Like leather or canvas.
Okay.
And don't wear the same shoes every day.
Oh, okay. Let them air out?
Exactly. And always, always dry your feet completely after showering or swimming.
Okay, so breathable shoes, clean tools, and dry feet.
Exactly.
Now, what about specifically for psoriasis? Anything extra there?
Yeah, for psoriasis, remember that stress management is crucial.
Okay.
Find healthy ways to cope with stress.
Okay.
Whether it's exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, or hobbies that you enjoy.
Right. Taking care of yourself.
Exactly. Self-care is important for everyone, but especially for people with psoriasis.
Makes sense.
Now, before we move on, I think it's important to debunk some common myths about these conditions.
Okay, let's do it.
First of all, nail psoriasis is not contagious.
Okay, good. We covered that.
Yeah, but a lot of people still think it is.
Yeah.
It's an autoimmune condition, not an infection.
Right.
And another common myth is that nail fungus is a sign of poor hygiene.
Oh, yeah. People think that.
While it's important to keep your nails clean and dry to prevent it,
Right.
anyone can get a fungal infection.
Right. It's just bad luck.
It is.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. One more thing.
Okay.
A lot of people think that these conditions are purely cosmetic.
Right.
Like it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But the reality is that they can have a significant impact on your quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
The discomfort, the self-consciousness, the pain.
Right.
It can be really tough to deal with.
It's not just about how your nails look.
It's not.
It's about how you feel.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's a great place to pause for now.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We've talked about the difference between nail psoriasis and nail fungus.
Yep.
We talked about what causes them, how to treat them, and how to prevent them.
Yep.
And we've debunked some common myths.
We did.
So stay tuned.
Okay.
We're going to be back with more on this topic.
Sounds cool.
Don't go anywhere.
All right. Okay, so let's get back into our discussion about nail psoriasis and nail fungus.
All right, so we've talked about how to tell the difference between these conditions just by looking at them.
Right, we talked about the visual cues.
Right, but I imagine it's not always that straightforward.
It's not.
So how can someone be absolutely sure what they're dealing with?
The best way to get a definitive diagnosis is to see a dermatologist.
Makes sense.
They have the expertise to differentiate between these conditions and other things that can affect the nails.
So what would that look like? Like what happens when you go see a dermatologist for a nail issue?
Well, first, they'll probably ask you some questions about your overall health,
Okay.
your medical history, any family history of skin conditions, any medications you're taking.
So they're trying to get a full picture.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then they'll examine your nails carefully, looking for those signs we talked about before.
The pits, the discoloration.
Right.
Okay.
And they might also take a sample of the nail.
A sample. What do they do with that?
They can look at it under a microscope
Oh.
or even culture it to see if there's any fungus growing.
So it's like a little nail investigation.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, and in some cases, they might even do a biopsy.
A biopsy of the nail.
Well, they take a small sample of the skin underneath the nail
Oh, okay.
just to rule out other conditions.
So they're really thorough.
They are.
Okay, so let's say you've gotten a diagnosis.
Right.
What happens next? Like, what's the long-term outlook for these conditions?
Well, unfortunately, both nail psoriasis and nail fungus can be pretty persistent.
Oh, no.
They can come back even after you've treated them.
Really? Even with treatment?
Even with treatment, yeah.
Okay, so what can you do?
Well, and for nail fungus, it's important to avoid those things that can trigger it in the first place.
Right, like the sweaty shoes and the sheared nail clippers.
Exactly. And
Ah.
for psoriasis, managing stress is really important.
Okay, so even if you clear up the infection or get the psoriasis under control, you still have to be careful.
You do. It's about long-term management.
Now, are there any, like, serious complications that can arise from these conditions?
Well, for the most part, they're not life-threatening,
Okay, that's good.
but they can definitely affect your quality of life.
Right.
The discomfort, the self-consciousness, the pain,
Yeah,
it can be really tough to deal with.
especially if you use your hands a lot for work or hobbies.
Exactly.
So it's not something to just ignore.
No, it's important to take it seriously.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential downsides,
Right.
but let's end on a more positive note.
Okay.
What can people do to manage these conditions and live a normal life?
Well, early diagnosis and treatment are key.
Okay.
The sooner you address the issue, the better.
So don't wait.
Don't wait.
Okay, what else?
Well, a lot of the same things we talked about for prevention also apply to management.
Okay.
Good nail hygiene, avoiding triggers, managing stress.
Right, so it's about lifestyle changes.
It is, and it's
Yeah.
also about finding the right treatment plan for you, which might involve medication or it might involve other therapies.
So working with your doctor to figure out what's best.
Exactly. So we've talked a lot about the physical aspects of these conditions,
Yeah.
but I think it's important to acknowledge the emotional and social impact too.
Right, because it's not just about how your nails look.
It's not.
It's about how you feel.
Exactly. People can feel really self-conscious about their nails.
Yeah, especially if it's something that's really visible,
Right.
like on your fingernails.
Exactly.
And for some people, it affects their toenails too.
Yeah, which can make things like wearing sandals or going barefoot really difficult.
And it can affect your relationships too.
Absolutely.
You know, intimacy, social situations.
Can make people withdraw from things they used to enjoy.
So it's really important to address that emotional side of it too.
It is.
Now let's talk about something that I know is on a lot of people's minds.
Okay.
Money,
Right.
treatment costs.
Yep. Healthcare costs can be a big concern.
So let's start with nail fungus.
No.
What are we looking at there in terms of treatment costs?
Well, the over-the-counter topical treatments are usually pretty affordable.
Okay, that's good.
But the thing is, you often have to use them for a long time.
Like how long?
Several months, sometimes even up to a year.
So it can add up.
It can.
And what about the prescription stuff?
Prescription topical treatments and oral medications are definitely more expensive.
Okay.
And insurance coverage can vary.
So you might have to pay out of pocket.
You might.
Okay, now what about psoriasis? What are the costs like for treating that?
Well, it depends on the severity and the treatment approach.
Okay.
Topical treatments are usually the first line of defense, and those can be relatively inexpensive.
Okay.
But if those aren't working, you might need systemic medications.
Right, like those biologics we talked about.
Exactly, and those can be really expensive.
Thousands of dollars a month, right?
Potentially, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, but there are often financial assistance programs available.
Oh, okay, so there's help out there.
There is.
So it's important to ask about that.
It is.
And don't forget, those costs aren't just about the medications.
Right.
You've got doctor's visits, lab tests, and all that.
Exactly.
Okay, so I think we've covered just about everything we can on this topic.
We have.
But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a message of hope.
I like that.
Because even though these conditions can be frustrating and challenging,
Yeah.
they are manageable.
They are.
There are effective treatments available.
Right.
And with the right knowledge and support, people can live a normal life.
Absolutely.
So if you're dealing with nail psoriasis or nail fungus,
Yeah.
don't give up.
Don't give up hope.
Talk to your doctor.
Get informed.
And remember, you're not alone.
You're not alone in this.
All right. That's it for our deep dive on nail psoriasis and nail fungus.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
It has.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.